Today we're here with George. So how are you, George?
Good. And yourself?
I'm very good, thank you. So I have a few questions I want to ask you. So give us some background about your experience with the media field. So what jobs have you had in the past?
When I started, would you say?
Yeah, or I guess middle of your career. Like, what was the main jobs that you had in the media field?
Well, the main job I had for 20 years or so was manager of studio and staging operations and production services for NBC and 30 Rock in New York. That involved the staging, the building of sets, the scenic artists who paint the sets, scenic designers who design the sets, working with costume designers, wardrobe people, makeup, hair, and wardrobe people, lighting people, and then of course your technical crew and all that. There was probably 7 unions and several hundred people. That was just for Saturday Night Live, but each show has all of that.
Yeah, it's great that you got to be a part of that.
I did, and am grateful to have been.
So just to clarify, how at each place, how long have you worked again? What'd you say?
Well, I started at NBC in 1969. I was a page, okay. And then I worked in network scheduling, which is scheduling the manpower. And then I was a unit manager for WNBC, which would be similar to CAU here in Philadelphia. And I did that until 72. And then I left and then came back about a year later. They hired me back. And then I left and came back in 81. And that's when I started with Saturday Night Live and staging operations.
So what was it like working there? What type of tasks did you have to complete on a daily basis?
Well, what you're doing, or what the responsibility of management to do is, you have all these creative people, and you have an idea. So what you're doing is helping them materialize the idea. From the writer to the prop people to lighting, everyone has to have whatever they need to do this. And to do that, you have to manage all these different people to make sure they have what they can do. Because you have union restrictions, you have delivery, and you're dealing in a skyscraper in New York City. It's not like California where you have these big studio sets and large lots. So, but it was great. Yeah. We made it work.
So how many hours of work did you complete on an average week?
I would say, I'll give you an idea of a Saturday Night Live week. On a Monday, the host would fly in and meet with Lorne and the writers, and they would discuss what they're going to do. Tuesday, the writers, actually from late Monday, all day Tuesday until Wednesday afternoon, the writers are writing all the scripts, and they submit maybe 39 scripts, 40 scripts of possible sketches. So then we meet at 3 o'clock on Wednesday, and it's Lorne, the host, the cast, the writers, and then all of us who help materialize it behind them. And that meeting goes on till 11 o'clock at night, and then they just start pounding away with designing the sets, ordering props, deciding costumes and all that. And then on Thursday we have the music rehearsals. Whoever the musical guest is there, they go through the run-through with them, the lighting for them, and their musical setup. They have 3 rehearsals for that in one day. And then after that, they start blocking some of the sketches. And that ends about 8 or 9 o'clock. And then the sets start coming in all through the night. And then at 6 a.m. on Friday, they start lighting them. And it really goes around the clock until it's off the air at 1 o'clock on Saturday. Wow. And I was normally there from 8 to midnight or 1 o'clock every day.
Yeah, I know you mentioned before you would stay in the hotel rooms.
Yes, we had a block of hotel rooms of 200 people that we would stay every week. Wow. And that was just SNL. That wasn't everything else. That was just that show. Wow.
So obviously, I'm sure you already know the answer to this question, but did you enjoy working with these jobs?
I did. Because for me, my philosophy was everybody made it work. Everybody, from the janitors, the cleaners, the truck drivers that delivered the sets, to the scenic, everybody made the whole thing work. In the end, it was a team effort. So I treated everybody equally. There were no real stars in my mind because everybody made it work. I mean, the star wouldn't be anywhere without all the backup people that made them get to that point. Right. So that was basic forte and how I managed all those years.
Oh, sounds great. See, because that's what I know. They always told us how it'd be like one big flow. You know, you have people over here doing one thing, people over on the other side doing something else.
Yes.
But everything comes together.
It does not
production.
always flow. And the idea when I went there in 81 or 82 was they were having a lot of problems with clogged arteries, so to speak, clogged pipes. So what I wanted to do was find out what was causing the problems and what could we do to change it. And so we did. And once everybody realized they were respected and everyone had respect for each other, the issues that were no more.
Right. So what struggles did you experience while working for these companies?
Well, I think you will find yourself as you learn to grow in this business is the finances of it. Because it's all politics, you know, I mean, that's just, I don't mean in a negative. I mean, it's all, if somebody believes in you, they will back you and they will give you the money you need. And there will always be a bean counter saying you can't spend this much money on this, you can't spend money. We had that problem all the time. But in the end, for the value of the show and the show production, they normally got their way. But I wasn't the bean counter, so I didn't have to answer to anybody. Yeah. But that's always, even with movies and everything, you know, it's how much they're willing to give you. Like for this setup here, a producer might decide they'll give you this much money, hoping you're going to make this much money.
Yeah.
But if you're going to make this much money, they might not decide to invest. It's totally different now than it was. But through the grace of God, you have cable now. You have all this independent stuff that you can do, which you didn't have years ago. So that's all good.
Right.
A quick one. They used to have an entire film unit, which would require maybe 6-7 people with prop people, whatever, to do. SNL used to have commercial parodies. If you've seen the old commercial parodies. Anyway, Andy Samberg came along with digital cameras. Changed the whole thing.
Yeah.
No longer did you need this whole elaborate crew and editing around the clock and all this expensive stuff to do a 2-minute. You had the digital shorts, as they put into the show, and it changed the whole dynamic of it. So.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's one thing I've heard about before. They always say how, I mean, mainly in photography when I would hear about it, but they always compare, I guess, older film cameras to the digital cameras and how much easier it makes everything nowadays and how
oh my God,
everything goes a lot faster. So
the television cameras when I first started at NBC had they were probably this big and probably that wide. I mean, you had a cameraman and a utility man just pulling the cables, pushing the camera around because they were so big. And now, of course, it's so different.
Yeah. And they fit everything into like a compact little camera nowadays.
Yes, a whole different world.
So what do you feel was your biggest success or your favorite moment during any of your jobs?
Well, the biggest success was the harmonizing of everybody to get the job done. From talent to everything to get it done. And to just, a thought comes to mind. I've mentioned Conan O'Brien several times here, but I remember one time I was coming out of the Port Authority of New York after catching my bus, and this limo's going by, and the window rolls down, and it's him. He goes, "George, come here. Let me give you a ride to work." And I was like, "No, I can't do that." And he goes, "No, come on, come on." That was the camaraderie that you had, because when you respect everybody and you treat everybody equal, you get more out of them, and more for the better of the whole unit than you do if you treat somebody better. I mean, we had our divas and self-anointed stars in all levels, in management and on stage.
There's always going to be a few people like that. I feel like anywhere.
Always. So.
Yeah. But, so going back to the start of your career, what was the first job you ever had in media? So how did you get started in the media field?
Well, I was a page at NBC. I was at a friend's house, and his father came downstairs. Now, in those days, we're talking the late 1960s, there weren't a lot of television networks. There's only ABC, NBC, and CBS. There were no cable. There was very few independent channels. And his father just said to me, you know, what I liked. I had some circumstances happen to me. So he asked me, did I want to work for NBC? And I thought he was joking at first. He said, but no, you start at the bottom, and then I'll open the door, and then you're on your own. So I was giving tours, showing, people come, they see, you take them to all the studios and all that stuff. And the humorous part was, part of the tour was a sound effects studio. Now, you can't imagine this, but you're bending metal, for lightning, and you're doing coconuts on the table, like for a horse going,
Oh, the sound effects.
The sound effects and all that stuff, because that's what you had to do. Well, on one of the tours, an executive's wife had her son's class trip. They were so impressed with the trip, she went home and told her husband, and then he called my boss as a page, and they brought me up to the network level.
Wow.
And then it was just one successful thing after another, all by your own example. I never went for a job. I never even asked for a job. It was all by what somebody else believed in me and said, I think you can do this, even if I had no experience.
I think that's really important to have. And it's always good to have that one person that really believes in you and supports you through your journey. So
Yep.
That was great that you had that. That basically answered my next question too, which I was going to ask you was, did you have to start from the bottom and work your way up to the higher power position?
I did. I did.
Yeah, but so did you find it easier or harder to work as your career progressed? So the farther you got, did you feel like it was getting harder, or was it just getting easier because you were used to doing it?
Well, the more you do, it's going to be harder. There's no question about it. I mean, when you go from just dealing with a handful, like at WNBC when I started there, that was more like local television, so there wasn't really a lot of involvement in a lot of things. Everything was film, so you would be endless hours editing things together. And but then as you get more and more involved, and there's more and more people, there's more and more problems. I mean, I might walk into my office, and there could be talent sitting there when I walk in at 7 in the morning going, oh, geez, what's this about? So I said, good morning. I'm not going to mention them. I said, good morning. What can I do for you? My makeup artist. Okay, well, let me find out what's going on. And then I take my coat off, and then they leave. And then the next person could come in, could be a cleaner that says, my supervisor won't give me any more garbage bags because they said we used too much on your show. So I'll say, okay, we'll get you more. So it could be any one of those things, but I never perceived anything as not my problem.
Right.
I considered everybody's problems to be my problem. And a solution for it. What's the solution for the problem? That's all I was interested in.
Yeah, that's a great way to think too.
But I mean,
you think that way.
That's how I did it.
Right. So as I mentioned to you before, I'm in high school right now as a junior, and I'm in a media class at my high school. So what advice would you give us to get started in the media field at our age?
Well, I think when I hear these questions, which you get all the time, it's and it sounds strange to say pursue your dream, but find something that works for you. I mean, if it's behind the camera, if it's in front of the camera, if it's writing, if it's editing, if it's audio, whatever, something that you really enjoy, and then you can pursue that to see if that is what you are supposed to do. I mean, if you're a writer, let's say you want to write. Now, what do you want to write for? Do you want to write comedy or drama or horror or whatever? Or do you want to light? Or do you want to be a cameraman? And I would say try and pursue your dream in that, and then start to expand from there. I'm trying to think, Tyler Perry once said, because he was homeless. He was living in a car, for goodness sake, before Oprah found him. And he said, my thing is to dream big and dream better. That's his thing, even now. So find something that you like, and then try to go for it, whatever it is. And then, if it doesn't work, don't be disappointed and down on yourself and say, oh, God, I wanted to be... There may be something right around the corner that's even better. Yeah,
always keep searching for it.
Always keep searching for it.
Right.
And in this business and in this world today, there's so many more venues than there were when I was younger.
Yeah. That's actually another question I was going to ask you, too.
Go ahead.
Everything's kind of leading into each other, so everything works here. So since our society nowadays is really technology-based, a lot of videos, a lot of internet, you would say media is a growing field, right?
Oh, God, yes.
And that there's always positions available in certain jobs?
I was just talking about this with some friends of mine the other day. Not for the quality of what's out there today, but certainly for the positions and availability of talent on all levels. With Netflix, now I heard something about YouTube doing so. I just heard that today on NPR, something about YouTube pursuing something in production beyond what they're doing now. Yeah. And you have Amazon Prime, you have all of these things that were never there before, and they're spending a fortune, and they're getting nominated for Emmys. So you have more and more venues, so that even if the dream is, everybody says, well, I want to do my dream, I want to work on the dream show. Well, you know what, that may not happen for a while. Do what you do best, and then you may find work in areas you never thought possible. I mean, in my day it was the network or Hollywood, work in the film. Well, now there's so many independent films and so much work in the independent film business that there's endless opportunities, and you can't give up. It's not like acting. Acting's a totally different thing. I heard an interview with Michael Douglas the other day, and his father was Kirk Douglas, who's a very famous Hollywood actor. He's 101 years old or 102 years old. And when he got into acting, his father said to him, I don't want you to go into acting. It's 90% unemployment. Acting is much, much harder because there's only so many of those jobs. But the behind the scenes, there's many, many, many jobs. So that's a good part.
Right. There's always something there.
Oh, there should be always something there, especially if you refine what you do and you do it well.
Right. So would you happen to know what age production companies start hiring?
I honestly don't.
Yeah.
I've been removed from the whole. I'll give you a joke how far removed I am from it. When I left NBC in 2001, we had beepers for communication. Yeah. If you wanted to get a hold of me, you'd beep the number you were at, and I'd look down and see the beeper, and then I'd go to a phone and call you. The rest of it happened right after I left. The whole digital explosion happened right after I left. So nowadays I hear it's a whole... everybody does things on their phone. Yeah. And I think you have to. Especially if you're in business or whatever, everything's available on phone. So that's the whole thing has changed.
Yeah, it's definitely going down to phones. Businesses would use computers nowadays. People could just log right on their phone and take care of any business they need to.
Cashing your checks, sending a bill, everything. It's a whole totally different thing.
So, would you say it's difficult for young workers, I guess my age and other people my age or around my age, for us to find jobs or be taken seriously? Because I know a lot of times people tend to think that teenagers or people that are younger just getting started in the field, they may not be as talented as others that are higher up. When you were in the media field, did you feel that was a struggle, or do you think everyone is kind of treated equally no matter what their age is?
There will always be people to tell you that you're not worth it or you're not going to make it. There's always going to be somebody to do that because their ego has a stench. Ego is a bit. If you can do things selflessly, meaning just pursue what you're doing and try to do that well, like we were talking before, that's where you succeed. It's when you get your ego in there's a real stench, and that clouds your vision, it clouds everything you're doing. But if somebody says, you can't do this, I can't move this, well then, you take some of those Asian philosophies, and they say, well, if you're in the stream and you're going down and there's a rock in the way, follow the stream around the rock. Don't let anything block you, unless you want to be a leading man or a leading woman or something and you know that that's not possible, and then you keep pursuing. That's a different story. But in general, I just think the possibilities are endless nowadays. But you have to persevere, and you're going to have a million disappointments, but don't allow it to knock you down and keep you down. Just keep standing up. On a spiritual side of things, they say a saint is a sinner who never gave up and stood up every time he fell. So I say that to other people when you're trying to make it, no matter how young or old you are. Even people later in life get into writing. They want to get into the business somehow. Even later in life, just persevere and just keep trying. Don't let anything beat you down. Now, of course, if you're in a small town, that's harder because there's not that many opportunities. So that's where young people move to more urban areas or cities, or not necessarily cities, but more where there's more possibilities.
So personally, what do you feel is more important when it comes to production jobs? Would you say education or experience? So when it comes to filling out that resume or going for that job or whatever you're going for, what do you think? Would they rather see education or experience?
Well, I think you need to be educated in what you're doing so you know what you're doing, But experience will always, I think, win out over that. It's important to have the education, but I think the experience weighs out. I mean, I could think of my own son who went to college, got communication. He still works Saturday Night Live, even now. He's working today. And he does nightly news and other stuff at NBC. And college was good as a degree, but in the end, I don't know that that's what got him in NBC. It was his experience and his perseverance of wanting to do. And if he's, like, for instance, let's say he wanted to be the interviewer like you are, but he saw that you needed an audio man. He wouldn't be disappointed because he couldn't be the interviewer. He'd go over and do the audio. And then suddenly they're saying, oh, he's doing audio. And then they say a light went out, and then he went and did the light. So all of a sudden, he started to make himself invaluable, so to speak, as I think I tried to help many people. And also there are people that you just know when you meet them. There were many people, hundreds and hundreds of people that hired over the years that you knew immediately that they were going to make, and they knew other people that needed work.
Right.
Not to discourage them, but just knowing that they needed work. And it didn't matter how many degrees they had. And you'll see many successful people don't have to. I'm not discouraging education. I'm just saying be educated in what you're doing. Don't just take a college thing to have the degree. Go to learn. Like my grandson, he's going to community college to get all that stuff done. And when he's ready to focus on what he wants to do, then he'll go to a major thing. But he didn't feel that this was anything he wanted to do, was to start in big debt right from the beginning. Right. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, it does. I think that's like really important nowadays. There's a lot of people. Education is usually put up like people feel like they have to go to college just for the degree and the title, so because they feel like that's what's going to put them in life. And I really think it's the work they put in at the college and the experience they get out of it.
Oh yeah,
that ties in with everything. So
I mean, I'm not a fraternity person. I was never a fraternity person. I had no interest. When you hear the hazing and all that garbage that goes on, is that what you're in college for? Well, what a waste of money that is.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can be educated going there to find something you want to do, whatever it is, even if it's history or whatever it is, that's what counts.
Right. So do you have any final tips for people like me that are trying to pursue a career in media?
Keep dreaming. Just keep pursuing your dream. And keep your hope alive. Don't let anything stand in your way unless you actually see that, all right, well, this isn't something I can do. Like, I know I'm not good technically. I was never good technically with anything. But I did know that you needed how to work with him and needed to work with her. So I found a forte in management because nobody wanted to be in management. And in the early days, and still to this day, in the world of music, managers screw their talent over so badly. Yeah. And you see how companies are mismanaged and a country can be mismanaged. So management is not a bad thing, because as I was saying earlier, everybody makes it work together. So I just saw a niche that I wanted it to work. I mean, I was a writer. I mean, that was my thing, to be a writer, but I thought it was more important that I saw everybody work this out than it was that I pursued my thing. And then many opportunities came to me that, not in writing, but in other ways.
Well, I think that pretty much sums up all of my questions. Okay. So thank you, George. It was great talking to you today.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for all the information that you provided us with. I think you've really helped us out a lot today. So
anytime. Thank you very much.
Thank you.